So this is podcast episode number 1, and so I want to welcome Dad. So thank you for helping me.
Not a problem, Hayden. Pleased to help out with anything.
Yeah, of course. Alright, so as everyone seems to know, you've got quite a big role in Speedway, and really Speedway as a whole, not worldwide but countrywide. You've been doing it from Auckland down to Christchurch and most places in between.
Yeah, I have. I've been pretty lucky with the job I do. You know, I guess in reality I've helped do the safety crew stuff from Taipa up north to Invercargill down south. So it's been really cool. I met some amazing people along the way.
Yeah. So along with most people, it seems, in Speedway, you've been going since birth. So why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I guess Mum and Dad met at Speedway, so I really had no chance. Unfortunately, I wasn't very well as a baby for the first month or so, or a couple of months, and I ended up going to Speedway the start of that next season, so I was almost a year old, and basically I've been going ever since. So that was the 67, 68 season I started going, and we've been going every season ever since.
Yep. So how many seasons is that now then?
Oh, it's about 52, I guess. It makes me sound pretty old when you ask it that way.
Yeah. All right. So your role in Speedway specifically is you're the chief of the crash crew at Western Springs. So what age did you get into that, not that role in particular, but into the crash crew scene, and then when did you step up into the crash crew head?
Okay, well, some of my initial involvement at Speedway was crewing for Bill Clarkson Senior, and then he retired. And after he retired, Mum and Dad, who had helped out on the infield with St John work every now and then, took over running the safety crew. And at that stage, they had the season where they decided to rebuild the springs, build all the new facilities that obviously you've only ever known, took out the banking and did all of that. And then I got an opportunity. They used to run B-grade meetings midweek, and they were short of safety crew people to do that. So I got asked to go along and help, and I guess that was the beginning of it. And from there, I just did more and more, ended up being permanently on a corner, to when Dad decided to leave in the Willie K days. I stepped up and took over running the safety crew and done that ever since.
So we were talking the other night about how long you've actually been doing that, and on first thought you thought it might be 10, 15 years, and then all of a sudden we realised that it was about 25.
Yeah, I've been running it for around about 25 years. It's been an amazing experience. I've met some amazing people that have been on the crew. We've had a lot of people come and go. A number of those have gone out and got themselves go-karts and other types of racing and ATVs and all of that, you know, we get into the sport and you've got to look at what we're doing. But I have been really, really spoilt, I guess, over those 25 years of having a consistent group of people that have been with me for probably, well, I've been doing it for sort of, I think we worked out 32 years overall on the safety crew, and a lot of these guys have been, or some of these guys have been here for 30 years with me, so it's just the stability makes us what we are today.
It's just what I was about to ask, actually. So with a high pressure environment like a safety crew, you're the first response to a crash. What kind of support team goes around that, and who do you deal with on first response to a crash?
Okay, so what we do is we do what I like to call a bit of a soft handover, in regards that the first person to get to the crash is, for those few seconds, in charge of the scene. It's whoever that is, it's their job to assess the accident, work out which car they need to go to first, and then of course I have a team leader at each end, which is normally Wayne and Phil, and they go in and do their bit. Then they decide what should go from there, and normally within a minute or less than a minute we're there with the safety crew truck, and I take over the whole scene and I assess everything from the state of the driver, the state of the car, the state of the track, the state of the fence, and all of that stuff that goes with it, and just coordinate all my resources from there, including the doctor.
Alright, so as it appears nowadays, probably more than in the past, we're quite time pressured. So in regards to that, how do you try and keep the time down when you get to something? What do you prioritise and what do you kind of push aside?
One of the things that does happen is on the way to the scene, I've actually made half of my decisions about a crash before I get there. You know, obviously we look at the ones where a car's stuck in the fence and I realise this is going to take a while. On the way there, I've seen that a car's torn down a big section of fence, and to know that obviously that's going to take a bit longer. When I get there, obviously my number one priority is the safety of my guys, because we can't help the driver if we put ourselves in danger. But the next priority is the driver, and that's next. But while I'm also assessing that, I have a number of people my quad bike rider jumps off the quad bike and he will assess the track to see if there's any big holes in the track from the crash, assess the fence to see that, if there's any damage, and then he will go and often just whisper in my ear, track's good, fence needs repair, or whatever needs to happen, and then that will just go ahead. And often I may leave the car if the fence damage is bad enough and the driver's okay, and then we'll just sort of make decisions from there.
I suppose that's the benefit of having a team, like you were saying earlier, who have been with you for so long, is that you can almost turn your back in a way and focus on the high priority stuff, and you know that stuff's going to get done.
Oh, absolutely. I think the one time that proved that for me was a night you'll remember well in your quarter midget days where I hurt my back and I ended up collapsed in the changing rooms. And that night I called Wayne, who's basically my second in charge, into the changing rooms and said, hey, I've got to go to hospital and do that. So I went off to hospital, and I know you won the quarter midgets that night and ended up on the podium. And one of the things you said in your interview was that, this one's for Dad, who went to hospital at the start of the night. And I know Dreville was pretty shocked that I wasn't there, because obviously the safety crew just operated without me, and that's that. And the other thing about it is that I also cross-train everybody. So initially people will start off with small responsibilities as they learn, but after that we will look at doing, so everybody knows everybody else's job, so that if somebody's away or somebody's gone off to go to the toilet or to go and do something else or is busy dealing with some other part of it, they can come in and help out from there.
Is there, with the communication side of that, is there much communication between you and the guys who go away and have to do other things, or do they just organise that amongst their groups on each corner?
I take control of that overall, but often in a bad situation where there's a bad crash. A good example of that was Stuart Marshall's crash at the end of the year, which, as we all know, was pretty bad. My priority was obviously Stuart. That was the number one priority, and we worked very closely doing what we had to do there. When I finished all of that and Stuart was leaving the track in the ambulance, at that point I went over and said, we need to, what about the fence, what about the track? And it came back to me, no, it's all fixed, everything's done. And so those guys realised the priorities that I had, realised that we couldn't have 10 guys hanging around the race car, so they just went off and did their own thing. But often I will reprioritise if I think of something. The classic of that is the old, someone drops a lot of oil for 30 metres down the track.
Yeah.
So we get out with the old brooms and the sawdust, and I'll have somebody spreading the sawdust. I'll often go on the broom because I know what I want, and then we'll just work our way around with that.
Throughout the night, you've got, obviously you are the head of your team, but there are people above you in a way that kind of manage the situation from a bird's eye view up in the tower. So what's your communication with them throughout the night, and how do they affect what you do?
I guess over the years what we've done is we've refined things as time's gone on. You know, I've had referees that I maybe haven't seen eye to eye with, guys controlling the lights that I haven't seen eye to eye with. But what we do at the Springs is, because we're a professional team, not just my guys, but everybody involved in running the speedway, from the gate guys to the guys who do the scrutineering to the referees to my guys to everybody. We're very, very good at what we do, and we make the meeting happen. So if we have an issue, we all just get together, discuss it, and do it. One of the things that's happened over the last little while is Bill Clarkson and myself, I sat down after a meeting a while ago and decided that I'm basically the one who calls a red light. So Bill leaves it yellow until I assess the situation, and if I feel I need a red light, I'll make that call over the radio, and I'll do that. So it's that sort of communication that goes on there. We also have our tow truck drivers that they work really closely. They understand what we want. They're really good most of the time at following instructions, and they just come in, pick up a car, do what they've got to do, get it off the track, and get things moving. And just, you were talking earlier about the time-saving things. One of the things we realised is that was wasting time was repairing a fence. So what we've now got, at the start of the night, I sort of turn up really early, and I bring out people have often seen me wandering through the pits with big rolls of fence wire. But we have those on the infield, so that if a car takes out a piece of a hole in the fence, we just overlay a piece, hook it all up with the fence tools we've got, and then I go and see Leon after the night, and it's his job to fix it during the week. But we just, obviously our priority is to get the meeting back underway. Once we know that the driver's okay, we can do all of that. We do what we can and try and get the meeting back underway.
So something we talked about before this actually started was the sit down and review, which you talked about at the start of that statement there, with your crash crew and the ambulance guys and all of that. So what kind of stuff? Because the Western Springs crash crew is world renowned in a way. It's really fast and really safe. It's like very seldom that a big mistake happens or you take too long to get to a crash or something like that. So it's a lot of maintenance to keep it at that level. So what kind of stuff are you doing to make sure it stays at that level?
Okay, well, one of the things I've done, if you'll talk to some of my people on my crew, I'm very hard on my crew. And part of that's around the fact that we're working with our own lives and with your lives as well. And the whole point of that, we can't afford to make mistakes. And that's what it is. The other thing we do is every year we train with St John. Okay, so after the meeting, after the first practice normally, we get St John along. We put the KED, which is the extraction device we use to pull people out of the cars. And as you well know, you and your brother and others,
yeah.
Ryan Barry's another one that's done a lot due to Kevin being on the safety crew. You guys have helped us out a number of times, being pulled in and out of cars for training. And I guess if we go way back, we had an issue with St John years ago. They changed some protocols with how they did stuff on a road accident, which is fine. But we come to a bit of a disagreement, and we met around at Brad Mosen's place when he was running the Turners DQ. So those who've been around a while remember how long ago that was. We worked with him. He sat in his car for about an hour at one stage without moving. And if you guys, you know how uncomfortable that is. And we just talked with the St John people and said, here's what you want to do. Can you understand how this won't work and what will work? We came together and we came out of there really positive and having learnt a whole lot. And I guess one of the things you're saying about reviewing and other things was after Stuart Marshall's accident, one of the things that people probably don't know is that after the meeting, we sat together with the St John people, and there were 3 of them. We sat together for probably 40 minutes and had a discussion about what we did right, what we did wrong, what they did right, what they did wrong. What can we do together as a team to make a situation? We never want to deal with that ever again, but we want to be able to do that any better if we can. Now, looking at it, there were a number of things that didn't quite go 100%, but we did, but nothing that affected Stuart. But it was little things, communication things, and we just discussed that for 40 minutes. And in complete honesty, there was no egos involved, nothing else. Just everyone had the chance to say their piece.
Well, that's a massive part of any kind of business relationship, and I suppose it is a business because it's at the end of the day it's people's safety, which is the most important thing. You know, your guys and the guys in the car. So something that a lot of people know about you is you're very familiar with everyone in the pits, and so I think that plays a big part in when you first get to a crash, when someone else first gets to a crash, there is that familiarity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I probably know 80% of the people out there by name, which makes it really easy. Unfortunately, some of them I've had to deal with a bit often on the track, but there's other people through our quarter midget days, through our TQ days, through just been doing this job for a long time that I've dealt with and I've met, and it does make a huge difference. And I consider a number of these people that have been my friends, and sometimes it's really hard. Looking back, one of the hardest things I had to do was send my brother-in-law off to hospital twice, knowing that my sister in the crowd was going to freak out. But knowing him so well, knowing that he wasn't right, and that we had to send him away. So it's just the things that you do. And I want to do my very best for these people I consider my friends. And I guess my whole life have given me so much pleasure being able to watch Speedway and give me all that excitement that I've had over the years to be able to help them to be able to do their job better.
Yeah. So you referenced a few times some really big bad accidents, and it's something that we hate talking about as drivers, and you guys probably hate talking about as a part of that safety first response team. But what's the stuff that comes to mind of some of the worst side of things in terms of like what kind of stuff shocked you when you first got there and that?
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's something sometimes you find really hard to talk about. Unfortunately, I've been involved in the worst part of the sport multiple times. But I think some of it is if we can learn a lesson from those things that went wrong each time. I don't like to talk about individual cases. a lot with what we did in the individual case. But one of the things I do is that after a really bad accident, I make sure that I talk to my guys on the safety crew as well, because we have had some pretty traumatic things to deal with over the years. And it's really good to know. I guess using the example, I learned a lot from Robert Leonard's accident. Unfortunately, we lost Robert, and I spent a lot of time talking to all of my crew and making sure that they were okay, because we have to go and do this next week. And so I think one of the bonuses that night was Willie Kay pulled us all together, put a couple of beers on, and we just sat down and talked. And understanding the value of that is really good, Well,
I think that's the part that a lot of people in the crowd don't realise as well, is that you guys have to go to work on Monday. You guys, this isn't a full-time gig for you guys. You guys have to, in a way, just put on a face, and whatever's affected you throughout the weekend, whatever you had to deal with, that has to almost go away so that you can concentrate on your job. And sometimes it's not that easy.
No, using Robert Leonard's accident as an example, after that we had a couple of girls from the company I was at, were at Speedway that night and saw it all happen. And I was at the photocopier photocopying some stuff, and apparently I was standing there, my photocopying had finished, and I was basically standing there with the old 1,000-yard stare on, staring out into space, and one of them just come and patted me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you're all good," and sort of carrying on. You don't sort of realise the effects it has on people and all the rest of it as we go, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand in particular has a real, well, to be quite honest, shit culture around speaking up when things get hard and stuff. So it's promising to know that the guys who are putting my life and all the other guys racing their lives in their hands, they're taking care of themselves and taking care of each other. I think that's a really positive thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is really, really important, Unfortunately, as blokes in a bloke culture, as you said, often we don't want to talk. So just that opportunity to be able to do that,
Yeah. All right, so we'll get away from that kind of topic and bring the mood up a little bit. So what's your most memorable moment that comes to mind?
Safety crew or just Speedway in general?
We'll have one of both.
One of the things that people don't understand that gets me, and it's not just one moment, it's again and again and again, is that an international midget race, I'm standing on the back of my ute on the infield, the race is going round, a Kiwi guy makes a pass for the lead, the crowd goes off, I can hear that over the engines, over everything else, and to this day, and it always has done, gives me goosebumps and sends shivers down my spine. That is one of the most amazing feelings for me. It just blows me away how up to this day it still gives me goosebumps,
I feel like as a Speedway fan, especially from Western Springs, if watching an international midget event, not just the feature, but from hot laps to qualifying to the feature, if none of that gives you goosebumps, I think you're at the wrong event.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the little things. The guys walking out beside their cars on those nights. Oh, I think it's really cool. The driver introductions, like you say, that whole side of Speedway is pretty incredible,
Yeah, well, I mean, we get a lot of people through the pits after the night, and a lot of people are surprised that, I don't know what they were expecting, but they're surprised at what they see. A lot of guys are just guys who have built up their money for years and years, and they've finally been able to afford something, and so they're a little bit older, and then there's guys like myself, Brayton Davison, Nathan and stuff, who have come through all the way from quarter midget, so we're almost a familiar face to a lot of the crowd who have gone for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope the one thing we don't lose at Western Springs is the open pits. And yes, there are risks involved with public and stuff, but I think the ability to have the fans come and see you. I know, talking to you after your accident, the amount of people coming through, from children of my safety crew, from the quarter midget kids who you still have a lot to do with, to just general fans coming down to make sure that you are okay after that crash. And I think that is a really, really cool part of our sport.
So we'll skip to that topic as well. So you've been a car owner while being on the crash crew. So what's that been like? Because you've had both Jared race and myself race, and we've both had big crashes at this race. So run us through what that's like.
Oh, look, I think probably to go back a step, you talked about the great parts about my most memorable moments. for you guys, with you guys racing, one of my proudest moments is to understand that you boys both won the Auckland Champs at Rosebank Road. And that's a trophy out there that you boys both have your names on. And that makes me really proud. And obviously, a couple of moments stand out for me. Your North Island title win in the TQ. That's your first ever, Speedway win, at an international level. And, of course, your New Zealand title. That was just incredible. I was standing with the Todds, with their crew and stuff that night, and for the runoff. And, we were just having a laugh and having everything else. But the minute you won, it just blew me away. And, of course, the friendship we had with those guys, they were so proud. But moving on to what it's like for you guys, I guess the first big one, I guess, wasn't even at Western Springs for Jared. It was the one at Wahara where, as he was rolling over, he got hit in the cage by another car. And probably of all the crashes you guys have had, apart from your last one, that's the one that scared me the most. And luckily, being on the infield, helping out at Wahara, I was able to go and see him. The other one for Jared was he did a big crash on the start-finish line. The one where Hayden was trying to video it and dropped the camera halfway through, worried about his big brother. But obviously to see him crash like that is pretty hard. And you go over, and you look at him. Your big crash at the Springs this year in the midget, this last season in the midget, was something, I guess, a few things with that people don't understand is on the way to that crash, obviously I let my driver Dave on the safety crew know to go that way pretty fast because it was pretty important to me. But on the way, I literally stopped and took 2 huge deep breaths with an understanding that I had to look after everything. Yeah, that's my baby in that car, but I had to look after the whole scene and everything else. And of course, as I drove up to the scene, Steve went to talk to Hayden, leant down, and then he stood up and started talking to one of the other safety crew guys. And that made my heart calm down a bit because I knew if Steve didn't get up, you were hurt. Steve did get up, so I knew you were okay. So
I had no idea who it was or anything. I couldn't see anything and I couldn't hear anything, but I knew that someone would be there. I could kind of hear someone asking me if I was alright, so I figured I'd give him the thumbs up and try and work out where I was.
Yeah. The other hard bit about doing this job, and it has been the whole way with you, with Jared, with both of you watching you race, is obviously I have one end of the track I'm supposed to watch, and the other person on the ute has the other end. I try and sneak a view into watch you coming through. I've had both of you kids come back after races going, "Did you see that pass on such and such?" And I have to go, no, I didn't, because I was watching my end of the track. And it's really good now, I guess, with Kim videotaping everything. We can sit back and watch it. But previously, I haven't been able to. I've missed a lot of stuff like that because obviously my job is to do that. But I've also seen a lot more than I probably should have done.
Yeah, definitely. So you have been there a long time, and a lot of the guys that you work with have been there for a long time, but it doesn't so much, you all kind of keep each other in shape, and how much longer can we expect to see that team at Western Springs, and do you have any plans, or are there any protocols in place to kind of bring new blood in?
I guess one of the bonuses we've been pretty lucky over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've had about 3 new people join us. And they haven't been as old as the rest of us. So we have got some youth coming through, and that really helps. And we train them, and they're coming on really well. Guys, it's really funny. One of the biggest things is track sense, understanding where to go with a car, where not to go. I have removed people from my safety crew and said, sorry, this isn't for you, because they haven't got that track sense. I've also had a guy come on years ago to join the crew with that and come to me and say, I can't do this because I'm a fan, I want to watch the race. And that's cool because they know what they want. But going back to your question, yeah, sure, we no idea how we're going to stay the crew. We've got a couple of guys we've got 3 guys around 60. So, we're not getting any younger. And that's a massive amount of experience that I rely on. And so, but yes, we have young people coming through, and we're slowly training up other people to look after other jobs. Yeah.
So when you bring them in, is there a mentor role that they go through, or is it just kind of, because obviously there's no room for trial and error in a role like this, so
it's been made more difficult by the new Speedway New Zealand rules. It's made my training job, and I feel for other safety crews around the country, it's made it really, really difficult to train because the numbers on the infield are so restricted now that it does make it really difficult to train new people, because in order to train somebody, I've got to take an experienced person out. So so we've had to modify what we do. I understand we've got a lot more than most safety crews. I've gone from having like 13 to 14 people down to 10 on the infield at one time. So, I have guys standing at the gate, but what we've done is revised ways guys now check the fence from the outside. They do some other jobs that we've worked with, and the guys get a break and they do this and do that. But yeah, so what we try and do is put them with somebody. I might put them down for 1 week with Wayne for a night. Just get them to spend some time outside at the gate watching what we do. Some time with Philip downtown Bend. And just because each end operates differently, so they need to learn that even though different isn't wrong. They're still getting the same job done, they just do it slightly differently.
What's your attack when you've got low numbers? Obviously, being on the crash crew, it's not a paid job. You're there for the voluntary experience. You're there for your love of the sport. But obviously, some things come ahead of that on occasion. So what's your approach, and how do you distribute to keep things safe and under control?
Yeah, good point, Hayden. It's been I've had some challenges over the years.
What's the lowest number that you've actually had?
The lowest number I've had has been 7.
Jeez.
And so that's been basically 2 at each end, 2 on the ute, and at that stage it was Mark at the pit gate, so we'd have him there, or maybe Mark someone on the quad. But that might have been a night that was key, and then it's on the Sunday night, so that's sort of when it does become hard. Having the 13, I've still got 13 people, so what I can do is, if I normally haven't got more than 3 away, and if we do, I've got people that I can pull in to drive for me. People that have done the job before that are happy to come back for a night and help out with this and do that, and it really makes a difference. But having the youth come through has helped a little bit. But as you say, unfortunately we haven't, because Speedway is what we do, but a lot of my other people do have lives. This changing calendar this year has created its own issues. I've got one of my safety crew gets married on the practice day, so I'm not sure what effect that has on me for that practice, how many people I'm going to lose for that practice. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do my normal training I do at that practice. So we also do fire training as well, where we pour 20 litres of methanol on the track, light it, and let it run down the ruts and see how we can put it out. So, does that training need to be delayed? Just a whole lot of things like that.
Are there opportunities for you to delay that? Are you able to just go and hire a track, or are you able to get everyone there?
The fire training is a little bit harder, because what I need is a track that's been run on. Because in the early days, when we first started doing fire training, we used to go out to Te Atatu Fire Station, because Des Hansen used to be on the safety crew, used to be a volley out there. So we'd go out there and we'd practice with a little bit of methanol, a bit of diesel, just whatever we could get, put it out and do all those sorts of things. And then slowly we stepped up to doing it at the Springs. But what we were doing was doing it on a Friday night. We'd pour into a track that was all cracked, and the methanol would soak in and soak away and run away, and we'd light it, we'd put it out really easy, thinking, oh, this is really cool. And then, for those of you who can remember, there was a crash going into turn 1 where I think it was a Harold Whitname 69 car got caught up with, I think it was Sean Inslee, and the tank ruptured on one of those cars, and we went out there and the methanol was just sitting in a big pool on top of the surface, and I had a lot of compliments about how we put it out, but from my point of view, we looked like Keystone cops. For me, we made a whole lot of small errors that made it more difficult than it had to be. But number one thing that we learned out of that was that the methanol sits differently after racing, because the cars have packed the track in, it runs down the ruts, it does all of that. So now we only practice after a practice. So yeah, it could make it more difficult to practice, and we may still do it with the people that are there, or probably will do the fire training.
Yeah. So one thing that you alluded to, and that was about the tank rupturing, so that kind of got me thinking, cars are being built better than they used to be, definitely, because the engineering's got better, all the gear's got better, but things are also getting lighter, and everyone's looking for an edge that way. So what effect has the evolution in car made on you guys in terms of things falling off, the danger of things coming off, the danger of things breaking. What kind of memories have you got? I remember the fuel tank that went up into the crowd and stuff like that. So just go through that.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that has happened is you talk about the safety for the driver for all of that. You know, I clearly remember Bill McGlynn's tank going up into the crowd. I ended up in the crowd. And, you know, you see some amazing things up there. The dad and his kids got hit and the dad wouldn't let us do anything until his kids were dealt with. But the tanks now are held on more securely because of that. So I guess that side of it's helped. And I think, you know, I'm one of the classics. I think Speedway New Zealand tend to knee-jerk at a lot of reactions, things they do. But I also think they have, over the years, put in place some places to keep our drivers safe and our fans safe. You know, I sometimes think they could be more considered in their approach instead of reacting like they do. But things like that, the tanks have now stayed on because this is what they have to do. I think the technology's got better with that. I don't think we're seeing stuff fall off cars like there used to be. There's not the old whole home-built stub axles like there were in TQs on the day, and probably even midgets. But you know, everything is now manufactured and bought from US manufacturers normally, or made here in New Zealand. But it's made to a standard on CNC stuff, and it's all the same and all the rest of it. So I think it's got better.
Yeah. What's in terms of crowd injuries throughout a night? It's not a regular occurrence, but I mean, when tracks were bad, probably 4 or 5 years ago, people were getting hit quite often, and that was a big concern. So, in terms of parts and mud going up there and people getting injured, what do you have going in your ear? And what's your response, if you have one, or what's the total response there?
Okay, well, I guess one of the things the Springs, obviously it's track I deal with at the most, has put in place is they've now got a finer mesh below the on top of the other mesh down for the bottom, probably 900. And I think that has taken away probably 90% of the hits of mud and stuff that have gone up into the crowd. Over the years, we used to go into the crowd more and more, but I think one of the things we've done is we've worked closely with the St John Motorsport team, and they're very good at what they do up there. And unless it's something that needs our attention, we normally leave it to those guys, and they do a fantastic job at getting to that and dealing with it. And I guess one of the bonuses I have radio communication with the clerk of the course, with Speedway New Zealand, all of that, and if I see something that's going on, we can often direct them around. You know, we used to do it in the day. I don't know if you remember when those little lasers come out, pointers came out, and we'd find guys pointing them from the crowd into drivers' eyes. God knows why. But, you know, those days we'd often help somebody and say, hey, it's that guy there. Yeah, that's it. And we could deal with it that way. So we have all that communication that makes a big difference.
Does injury in the crowd or anything affect the way that the meetings run? Or is that a separate issue itself?
I guess the final call on that comes down to the steward, depending on the severity of what's going on, if it's in a situation. The reality is, often, apart from the people around an injury, often people don't know something's happened. You know, I've gone to speak to people and they don't even know something had gone on. And often I don't know something's happened in the crowd. So, you know, you just look at what you do, you get on with what you do. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. And because we debrief with St John afterwards most nights, and even if it's only quick chat to them afterwards, we know that's often when I find out something's gone on in the crowd. Yeah.
So we've obviously, Western Springs is one of the places where we've got St John up in the crowd at the same time. However, we do only have one ambulance in the pits, so what's the protocol around that? If that ambulance is being used and something happens on track, what happens there?
I think we're pretty spoilt there in regards that we also have a first aid room where often that person ends up in the first aid room as much as anything else. Obviously it's a little bit vague to me what goes on that side of the fence once the driver leaves the track or something goes on in the ambulance. And I think for yourself, I think you ended up out of the ambulance into the St John room. Would that be right?
I never went into the ambulance.
Yeah. I know you went out, yeah.
Too tough for that.
Yeah, and as they do that, I think that's sort of the way it goes. But also that I know that ambulance doesn't leave the stadium. I guess it'd have to be pretty bad for that ambulance to leave the stadium. They'd call in a status 1 transport ambulance, and that ambulance comes in and brings somebody another ambulance and they transfer them into that one and they take them away from there. So, yeah, I guess the bonus having the guys in the crowd as well, they can come down and help deal with stuff that needs to be dealt with in the St John room, in the ambulance room or in the back of the ambulance, and have something available.
I know Auntie Sue's told us stories about, obviously, my Auntie Sue, whose dad's sister, has a lot of first aid training and she works closely with St John. She's actually employed by St John. And she's had to actually get to incidents herself and deal with the incident in the crowd. So there must be like a kind of handover from a member of the public who's able to deal with it onto the St John out there, who can then pass it on down to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And often, as I said with the radios, if we see something like that happen, we can mention it across the radio and help facilitate getting something up there.
Yeah.
They have a golf cart that's often there that they can go and get people in and do that. We have the doctor's golf cart that if we need it, we can take someone up to bring them up, because it's always hard getting people back through the crowd, depending on what their injuries are. If I guess worst case, they could always take the ambulance up there, but I don't think that's happened.
Yeah. So I've got two questions at different ends of the spectrum. So number one is, what pisses you off during a night at Speedway? So I know that you have a lot of interaction with drivers between crashes and stuff, and obviously hot heads can prevail, unfortunately, at some times. So run us through some things that really piss you off throughout a night.
I guess the ultimate one for me is any driver putting us in danger. You know, our pet hate is wheel packing. You know, we hate being on the track during wheel packing. But we have to go out to direct you guys. We've been given an instruction by the promoter or the track people to get you guys to run where you're supposed to run. I'm assuming you guys have been told over the radio, and you know, some guys gas it up while my guys are out there. And even though it gets the adrenaline running and it's a cool feeling when a car go past you sideways, I guess the risk of something going wrong really, you know, I don't want one of my guys hurt because of someone's stupidity and they think they can do it all, and you know, they can be the best driver in the world, but if a part breaks, you know, often they're coming back because I've got to restart. So they've been caught up in the accident. A part could have broken that no one can see until it gets back under load. And then that happens. And I guess my other pet hate with Speedway at tracks is I hate nothing being on the track. You know, I've been to meetings where all the cars go off the track and you sit there for 3 or 4 minutes till another car comes back on the track. You know, even if it's just cars being rolled out behind quad bikes, or in front of quad bikes, it means that at least the crowd's got something to look at, because we are in the entertainment game.
Something that I remember you telling me when I was younger is when people throw hissy fits and throw steering wheels and stuff. And I know you're obviously in a position of power there where you're able to play a little game with them of hide the steering wheel.
Yeah, the classic story. One of the Aussies come over years ago, and he had a real hissy fit tantrum, and he came off and he threw a steering wheel probably 20 metres away. So, and we had a bit of a run-in with him over the time, so I just took the steering wheel and put it in the back of my ute, and his crew came out trying to get his car ready after the accident to sort out, and they lost a race of repair time because I had a steering wheel. But yeah, throwing steering wheels is one of my absolute... Steering wheels and helmets is my pet hate. I know I taught you guys right from the very first days of racing that all your safety gear is critical. And I understand you're frustrating, and I understand the crowd like to see some emotion, you know. But, you know, throwing that stuff, it makes my job... You know, a guy gets out of a car, throws the steering wheel across the track. We're trying to get the meeting back underway. We're trying to get the race running. You know, if they take too long and we've got to go and retrieve a steering wheel, it might only be a couple of minutes. A couple of minutes could cut 5 laps off someone's feature at the end of the night. So I guess that makes me pretty frustrated.
Something you actually talked about there was the interaction with the crowd between the driver putting on some entertainment in a way. So something that we've lost, and we've talked about this before, is the personality in Speedway. So it's obviously the pressure of sponsorship with all the cost of everything going up. You have to maintain a good image, and like I know as well as anyone how much I'd like to go and punch someone in the nose after something happens on the track, you know, but you have to keep yourself together. And so what were the best personalities that you think you've seen in New Zealand Speedway, Australia Speedway, American Speedway?
I love people that speak their mind and do stuff. for those of us old enough, remember the Graham Standering getting out of the car, climbing down his bonnet, up the other bonnet, and giving the Australian a boot. Maybe that's going a little bit far. But I do like the fact of guys having a rivalry, guys getting out of their cars, showing a bit of emotion. Unfortunately, the rules nowadays, you're not allowed to get out of your car. So I guess by the time all that happens, you've cooled down enough. But, I just think in the sport we have lost some of the true personalities, I guess I look back to the days of Noel Goodwin when he was running the TQ. And Goody would dump his TQ and he'd get out of the car and he'd do a headstand on top of the car as he got out of the car after a crash, and that just gets the crowd going. We've lost those sorts of personalities. Obviously, Barry B was one of my favourites. He was my favourite driver as growing up. So watching, he always had the emotion and the passion there with him, and I guess the one driver nowadays that has that passion and fire would be Shane. Shane's quick to let someone know if they've pissed him off, and
he's pretty terrifying when you turn around in the pits. he's another 1.5 feet taller than you.
Yeah. So yeah, but I honestly don't see it as a bad thing, and I also don't see if guys are clashing a bit from time to time, and it's nothing major. I don't see why promoters don't use it as a promotional tool. It's that'll get some crowd along. That these two are going hammer and tongs and week after week, and they rub wheels one week and they've done this the next week. And
I love this. There was a sign in America, and it was saying that if you fight in the pits you get arrested, but if you fight on the front straight you get $100.
Yeah. Yes, I did see that. I do like that.
Yeah. In terms of, obviously, when guys like Australians and Americans come over, they're more often than not, they're actually racing for the paycheck. So this is their job, and they're racing for the paycheck. So you tend to get more of a reaction out of them. So what kind of reactions have you seen more recently out of guys like that?
Yeah, we have. We've had some, and I understand. The one thing I do understand about this sport is the adrenaline. And I can understand. I've got wound up at times, and I've had to go at drivers over the years.
No.
So I understand that there's adrenaline involved in what we do. So there's certain things that I do understand, and often stuff, the abuse can get hold of you because some Speedway New Zealand official, whether it be a scrutineer or a referee's told me to take this guy off the track, and they don't want to go because in America they'll get another start and they'll do this and do that. We've had a few interesting reactions to that from drivers, but we just have to sort of let them know that it's coming from somewhere else, and you do the rest of it. And I guess they also have their frustration with, often we cop the brunt of something that another driver's done, and they're pissed off because they've been shunted off the track or they've done whatever. And I guess the other thing around about that is their scrutineering after an accident is quite different to ours. We have to have, I won't let a car go until a scrutineer's checked it. Because that's the rulings we have. So, and often, I guess with my knowledge, having owned your cars for a number of years and been involved with Speedway for so long, I can often tell when something's not right. It's really easy to miss something. We did it with Zach Dunn the other week. We thought something, or the other year, that something we thought the car looked okay, but there was a rod end broken that we didn't actually see. Because when he went to go, there was a problem with it. So, we can't see everything, but we try to do that. Yeah,
of course. I mean, it's quite, in a high pressure, high bank account sport like racing, it's really, after a crash and stuff, I remember a friend of mine saying how he thinks that we're nuts because we'll have a big crash, and not a big crash, but we'll get caught up in a tangle. I mean, we've got no idea if the car's right or not. Sometimes you might have missed something. I mean, you guys are only human. And then we just go, something you were talking about earlier, we just go flat out down the back straight to try and see if anything's fine or if it's no good. So, I mean, Speedway drivers are definitely a different breed to everything else in the world. What gets you excited on just your standard old regular night? What kind of stuff gets you excited?
I guess I love guys going hammer down, and it doesn't matter for me if we can be from quarter midgets all the way through to sprint cars and every class in between. I just love watching a guy battling it out, pulling off a great pass, Of course, we all love the old wheel stand. You know, the poor person, whoever's on the back of the ute with me at times, gets a nudge and go, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" There's somebody's wheel stood down the back straight, you know. For me, it's just the good racing. I just love to see that, you know, a race that's run a bit and it's gone for a while and the racing just gets awesome. And yes, for now, as the tracks got better and better last year and we were able to see some great slide jobs and cars run without being able to battle each other rather than battle the track, and that gets me really excited.
Yeah, I think something that gets me excited is something you talked about just then, is the evolution of the track prep. So it used to be, when you watch the videos of back in the day, it used to be kind of single groove racing where they talk about how back in the day it was all like tough guy stuff where you had to muscle guys out of the way.
Yeah.
But they didn't really have much like other choice. I mean, the track was single lane. There's a video of, I think, is it Barry Butterworth or Sleepy Trip when he goes up on the cycle track?
Yeah.
Yeah, and makes the pass for the lead, but it's like, man, you'd get so frustrated with not being able to make a move that it drives you to that point. So the track evolution that now there is, I mean, the 50 lapper track this year was unbelievable. It just progressed throughout the night, got higher, was up on the fence for the feature for basically 50 laps, and then it got too high and you had to start sliding up to it and stuff like that. And that's really exciting stuff. So from the infield, do you have time to even like pay attention to what's happening with the track in terms of like as it's progressing throughout the night? Because I mean, you're paying a lot of attention to safety risks and all the rest. So what's your attention in terms of the track?
Yeah, I guess with that, what we try and do is we probably have a different thoughts on the track than what you do. Yeah, we're concerned about holes appearing in the track. So at that stage, if any of my guys spot a hole in the track, they'll come and talk to me, and we'll pass that information on to the track people or the promoter, whoever's on the infield, clerk of the course, for them to go and have a look at, and they can make an assessment on what they want to do. But yeah, you are right. You know, you look at the evolution now of early in the night where it's hammer down and really hard to pass, and you know, everyone's just going so fast. It's really difficult, and as the night goes on, it starts to move up. And I guess, as we've all seen the tracks where that crust, where those edges get too hard and nothing wants to move and we don't seem to go, and you're thinking, oh cool, sprint cars are out next, they'll go and run this, spread this up, and then they go and run one lane and we don't sort of gain anything. And yeah, look, we do see that, but unfortunately that's the track prep people. But we look for holes and look for other stuff and try and just give them, let them know when something's right so they can make a call on what they do with it.
Yeah. So as we wind down to finish this off, I want to know what's one thing in particular that you're excited for this year? Is that too hard of a question, is it?
Yeah, just for me, I'm really excited to be celebrating our 90th season. I think it's really important. You know, I've been going to Speedway my whole life. I can't think of doing anything else on a Saturday night, and I know there's a whole generation of people out there that are the same as me. You know, I've been really lucky in my job recently over the last probably 6 months. I've bumped into a whole lot of Speedway people. And that normally means an hour of your day's gone, because you start talking about stuff and people you know and races and everything else that's going on. But I just really look forward to being able to celebrate the history that we've had. You know, I think one thing for me as a fan, forget everything else, as a fan, some of the drivers we've seen down here is incredible. You know, I've had the privilege of watching AJ Foyt, Rich Vogler, Mel Kenyon. As
that older generation, you really got to see from the start to the finish, in a way, of the American professional. You know, I mean, we've got Larson and Bell here for the last 2 years, and they're literal NASCAR professionals. So
yeah, well, it has been, and I think the biggest change with that, I guess going way off topic, the biggest change with that has been when Sleepy Trip came out, he came out with that LTC. That was like nothing we'd ever seen here before, and his car was so much better than anybody else's. Now I think the biggest difference between the States and everywhere else is our tracks, not the cars. Our cars are as good as what they run in America. So to watch these guys come down, and the bonus being able to watch them with a live stream. we sat down and watched a meeting on with a live stream, and then you're watching this guy that's going to kick everyone's ass in the States come down and battle with you guys lap after lap.
I mean, it definitely keeps us scared knowing that they're coming off a 100+ race season, and we get maybe 20 something if you put together a bit of hard work and travel.
Yeah, it is, and it's really, really cool. And I guess for me, I just can't wait to get racing again. I've had enough of an off season.
Yeah,
you know,
I think we all have. It's only July, so
I think the speed show made it worse seeing you in your suit and your car there, and you sort of want to go, come on guys, let's get this together.
Has there ever been anything that you wish you did do in terms of speedway or motorsport?
I wish all my driving talent hadn't flowed down to just you and your brother as I had done. No, not really. We're saving up to do a trip to the States at some stage, and that's something I really, really want to do. I want to go and watch some racing in America. Look, I've been, like I said before, I've been privileged enough to safety crew on tracks all over the country, and I've met some amazing people along the way. Some lifelong friends now that we've got through the sport. A few we've had, all the rest of it. I guess the value of Speedway here is, we'll talk about, for me, just quickly, the Invercargill thing. We went to Invercargill, a track that beat us setup-wise. We didn't do any good there, but hey, we had a blast. Hayden himself used to go for a walk around tracks. We were walking down the back straight at Invercargill, and the water truck driver stopped and talked to us probably for 15 minutes, and when he left, when he tried to take off again, he'd put big holes in the track where the water truck had parked, and out he goes, and off he goes. So, all he wanted to do was talk about the quarter midgets coming there, and I know it was only quarter midgets back then, but he just wanted to talk about racing. And I think I've done some pretty cool stuff within the sport. I've met some things, as you know. I've now taken on the commentary at Rosebank Road at the speedway track there as well. So, I refereed for CTRA up at Taipa. So there's probably not a lot I haven't done in the sport. So, I've been very privileged to be able to do what I've been able to do.
So that's actually something that not a lot of people know that you do, is the commentary at Rosebank Road. So why don't you talk about the challenges that you had to go through getting used to that, and how you look at improving each week?
Oh, absolutely. So when I first started, it was I opened my big mouth at an AGM to the current commentator, and she said, well, do you want to do the quarter midgets? The first time I got up there, I was shaking, my voice was quivering. And then after a couple of meetings, someone said to me, geez, you're a bit excitable, aren't you? And so I sort of calmed down a bit, and what I did was I thought about it then and thought, well, I know the commentators I like, I know the commentators I don't like, I know what I like when I listen to a commentary, and I know what I don't like when I listen to a commentary. So what I've done is just try to take the best of the people that I've heard, and put it in. Last year I stepped up to do the commentary full time. And I guess what I'm looking to do now, I've had that confirmed, I'm doing it again this season, and I'm already starting to look now at delving into a bit more of the history of solos and sidecars, because last year was a huge learning curve for me. So this year I want to have a bit more knowledge at my fingertips so that I can pull back, when they're watering the track, because they do a lot more of that at Rosebank, as you know, at Been a Day meeting, and pull back on a bit of history, a bit of what's happened currently. We're spoiled enough in this generation. I grew up in the Ivan Major, Barry Briggs, Ronnie Moore days. And now we've got Bradley Wilson Dean racing solos in the UK. So to learn more about what they do with their results, about what they do, for me has been really important. Look, learning a whole new bunch of names has been really, really difficult. Trying to call two guys in a sidecar. Trying to remember one of them's been hard enough, let alone two.
Yeah.
I've made a few mistakes along the way, but I too do evaluate those and try and make myself better.
I mean, I know I don't get out to Rosebank as much as I wish I could, but I remember talking to a good friend of mine, and he was saying that he works with a sidecar rep, and the rep was giving you massive raps about how well you do and all the effort you put in. And I think that's quite a big part of commentary, is what you don't see as much in New Zealand, which we wish there would be, is the commentators getting down into the pits and talking to the guys and getting an insight into what's been updating, what's been what throughout the week, and so they've got that relevant information to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something I've already thought of. On my calendar on my phone is already the 7th of September, which is their noise testing and first practice day for Rosebank. So my plan is to go along then and do it. Last year I didn't know many of the solo and sidecar guys. Whereas over the year I started to get to know them, and that's exactly been my plan for this year, is to go and talk to those guys, learn a bit more about them. That's sort of what I want to do. I can talk about the quarter midgets all day. I've been privileged enough to become a life member of that club, which sort of blew me away when that happened. But I've been involved with it for probably over 20 years now. We used to go and help them out years ago. And so to call a quarter midget race is really easy. I know who's running what car, what their chassis is, what the engine is, what they've done over the last month, where they're racing next. So I can cover all that off. So now it's just learning that next step about learning more about the solos and sidecars.
Well, that's really cool as well. As I assume that the quarter midget club especially appreciate the effort that you put in. I mean, a lot of guys, they always come back eventually and check things out, but you're really someone who's stuck around the whole time. Yourself, Paul Lecren, guys who have stuck around the entire time that from when they started to now, just trying to give back, because I mean that club gave us so many memories and so much value.
Yeah, it did. Look, I was privileged enough last Easter to go up to Kaikoui, and the Quarter Midget Club handed the Saturday and Sunday over to me, and we run a format of fastest off the back all weekend. We run a pole shuffle for the top 8 cars, and we run a feature fastest off the back. The winner of the pole shuffle started off the back, and the kids got to choose Barry B style. When we announced to one of the kids that he'd made the pole shuffle, the reaction was, me? I'm in there?
That's so cool.
And so to do that, those moments, are just amazing. And because that club has given us so much, we've both put a lot of effort in. Me and Sean McHugh put a huge amount of effort in trying to build the club up to where it is today. Considering you're racing against 8-10 cars sometimes,
Not
and
even
sometimes
that.
less.
I mean, there's photos that actually popped up the other day in the Facebook memories of us gridded up before a race, and there's 5 of us, and that was a good night when we could get all 5 cars there.
Yeah, and we put a huge amount of work into the training car and everything else that went into it, and to see the class where it is today just makes people really proud of what we managed to start. And like you say, Paul Lecren has been a massive part of that. He's just been amazing with all the kids coming through. I guess the talk quarter midgets, one of the bonuses I've had is, I was sport when I first got involved in quarter midgets. The races were the O'Connor boys, Shane Van Gisbergen, Brad Mosen, Chris Gwillam. All those guys were racing week in, week out. And if you didn't look at what they were running on a Rosebank on a Friday night, the racing was as close as anything you got to watch. So I've been privileged to watch those guys' careers from there.
Did you know at that stage that specific guys were going to be better than other guys and all the rest?
You could see the good people. A lot of the good people had something special. Sometimes you'd see guys not always winning but trying stuff, and I guess that's important to learn, that you don't just follow the leader. You're not always going to win by sticking to the bottom and not going anywhere else. So sometimes you have to go to the top. Sometimes you have to learn these things. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. All right, I think that just about wraps it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Hayden, for giving me this opportunity. I've sort of really enjoyed. As you know, this is my passion. We could probably talk for hours, but
yeah, we definitely could. So to anyone who's still listening, this is something that I'm going to plan on doing more often. So obviously we've still got about 3 months left of off season, and so I've got quite a long list actually of people who are keen to get this thing going. So I'm going to try and get things up on the podcast app. I'm going to get things up on YouTube. And hopefully everyone's looking forward to who my next interviewer is going to be. And just as a clue, he has a New Zealand title. So I'll leave you at that. And yeah, thank you for listening.